much
I
so.
just did a study on the loss of Lazarus. And when Mary and Martha had called for their dear friend. And
Their brother.
Well, they called for Jesus to come.
Oh, they called for Jesus. I thought you
because he was dying.
Yes.
And commentaries will say, well, was he too far away to get back in time? Or da, 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 da. Bottom line is, they were losing their brother.
Yeah.
And Jesus was their friend who could help. He was out helping.
Right. Right.
And yet he came back and they said, where were you?
Yeah.
We've lost him. Do you know that there's a relation? I know you know. You guys both know this.
No,
You know what I
it's a
learned the other
great-
day?
it's a
Tell us. I'm all
I
ears.
love hearing
There was a relationship between the man born blind and the people around going, well, was there sin in their life? Is it because they didn't pray enough? Or what, you know, as Scripture puts it,
Right.
those verses are related because Christ says it is for the honor and glory of the Lord that you should endure these things, and my name will be praised. And he heals Lazarus, but first weeps
Sure.
with Mary and Martha
Sure.
and is grieved over their loss. He was just present. And so I think we look for those answers, or probably in the ministry feel like, especially with a DTS degree or a theological degree, well, I should know the 4-step plan to this, or 5 steps to that.
Sure.
Jesus didn't show up and say, first of all, he just wept. And then he looked at those around the man born blind and said, there's no sin in their lives. This is for my honor.
A longtime friend of mine named Joe Bailey, who's now gone from us, lost one son and then a second son and then a third.
Oh my gosh.
3. And he writes in his book, it's now named The Last Thing We Talk About. The first title I preferred, The View from a Hearse. He said he will never forget, some people came at that third time of grief, and they talked, and they talked, and they prayed, and they read verses, and they had a poem, and they talked. And he said, I couldn't wait for them to leave.
Yeah.
Others came. And just sat by me.
Yeah.
And I never wanted them to go. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
We need to get away from the idea that you need to read the book on 7 ways to help people, or the 10-step plan to bring people peace. If that book is written, don't read it.
Yeah.
But we need to understand our presence is in itself a statement of compassion.
And Chuck, I think that's part of the thread that runs through the ministry at Stonebriar, be it Megan Wall and her leadership team and our special needs ministry, be it what Charlton Hyatt has done in developing the care ministries, and really through every part is the sense of presence, of being there. That's what we as a church have this wonderful part to play in this grand tapestry, in this divine life that we have, to step in and just be present, and listen, and cry and weep and laugh. I mean, it's okay to laugh. It's because that's human.
Yes.
And during that season of grief, there's a need for great humanity and the totality of humanity, of laughing and crying and eating and sleeping and talking about things that seem irrelevant, and to allow all of that full expression of life, and not truncate it by making them follow 7 steps. And because I think that just minimizes the totality of what Christ gave us in life, which is
I think
all of
we
that.
also have to guard against shame-based statements.
Yeah.
That, in all fairness, no one sits in the morning thinking,
Right.
see, how can I make something make someone
Satire will make 'em mad.
feel ashamed of
Exactly.
it. We don't do that.
Right.
With all the right reasons, often, not always, but often, we'll make a statement that has in it shame.
Yeah.
I've never found anyone helped by being told, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, there are times I do feel, and appropriately so, shame for what I have done or said. But that's what I'm struggling through. No one else has to say to me, you need to feel ashamed of yourself. Even when Nathan confronted David, who acknowledged his sin of adultery, he simply said, you are the man.
Right.
And David acknowledges it and says, I have sinned. And the very next line, and the Lord has forgiven you.
Yeah.
Now, there were consequences,
Yeah.
but there was no shame.
And-
You know, you spend the next 4 years, David, on probation.
Yeah.
And we'll watch you. And we'll see if you really mean this. We'll see if you look at a woman, and we'll see if you have really conquered
Right.
this matter of
Right.
love. There's none of that.
And that's that beautiful balance that we don't know how to exact the formula of truth and grace. I mean, that is the wholeness of Christ. Is
Now, sometimes a person needs to hear,
Absolutely
you know what?
right.
That is your responsibility.
absolutely right.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
right.
shaming.
Yeah, they had choices.
Exactly.
They could have
And
gotten really
You're
mad.
dodging around this, or you're finding someone to blame. Stop the blame.
Well, and in times of grief where I've dealt with people, whether it's divorce or death, where I've had to look at them and say, I know you're going through it, but look, if you don't get up and go to work, it's going to get worse.
There you are.
Right.
And that's truthful. While
That's a straightforward piece of counsel.
while I'm understanding their heart is aching,
Right.
the best pastoral message I can give them is, buddy, it's going to get worse if you lose
Yeah.
your job. And
Right.
so get up and get your shoes on and go to
Right.
work.
You and I have been working with a young man that's gone through this.
Yes.
As he's working his way out of addictions.
Yes.
Happens to be alcohol. And I've heard him say to me, he said in my car yesterday, he was with me, you know, the thing about Steve, he was on me about getting this job, Well, this week he got the job.
Yeah.
You know what?
He did?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's a different man.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a different man. It's given him a sense of dignity. There's a future and a hope.
Yeah.
He's working through his addiction,
Yep.
coming to the other side of it, but without a job,
Yep.
he's home all day. You know,
Yep.
"Oh, man, I'm
And
not
that's
working.
that
I'll
truth
never
and
make it."
that grace. And shame doesn't have a place in either of those.
Right.
You know, truth shouldn't be
Right.
shaming.
Yeah, you never hear Jesus say to Mary and Martha, you should just be ashamed of yourselves.
Even though
You
they
knew I could do
blamed him.
anything.
If you had been here, my brother would not have
Right,
died.
right.
There's blame all over that.
Yeah.
Really? You're talking to the one who raises the dead.
Right.
Who made him?
Right. Right.
Exactly.
Who
You know?
knows him from beginning to end?
In fact, he had said to his disciples, we'll stay right here.
Yeah.
And he
waited.
deliberately did not go.
He waited.